Welcome to Craft a Brew. Let's make some wine. This is the Craft a Brew Chardonnay wine kit, and it comes with everything you need to make 1 gallon of delicious, crisp, and refreshing Chardonnay wine. Let's see what's inside. First up, we have the guide to making wine. And then we have this little baggie. Included in there are a 3-piece airlock, a hose clamp, and the cap for the end of a racking cane. And of course, we have a racking cane for your siphon. There's also another little baggie in here. Included in it are oaking powder for adding oak flavor to your wine, packet of no-rinse sanitizer, Chardonnay, a wine clarifier, bentonite, also a wine clarifier, a packet of wine stabilizers, potassium metabisulfite and potassium sorbate, and of course, yeast. This particular yeast is really good for home fermentation, particularly because it works well at home temperatures. Also, it's a quick, clean, and efficient fermenter, so it should help you avoid stalled out fermentation. Now let's get a little deeper into this kit. We have the tubing for your siphon, 5 wine corks, a funnel, a rubber stopper, a 1 gallon jug for fermenting your wine in, and 1 bag of Chardonnay concentrate. This is concentrated grape juice. We'll be diluting it with some water for fermentation. So now that we have all the components unpacked, it's time that we prepare to make our wine. Our winemaking day begins by mixing up some sanitizer, and we'll do that by mixing half of this packet with 1 gallon of water in this 1 gallon bucket. Sanitizer is important because we want to make sure that the only microbes that are inside of our fermentation vessel are the ones we put there. In this case, yeast for making wine. And sanitizer sanitizes all the surfaces that are going to come in contact with the stuff that makes your wine to hopefully avoid transferring any other microbes into the fermentation vessel. Sanitizer is very important to home winemaking. So, half of our packet goes in. We'll save the other half for later. And then we pour in our gallon of water. I'm using spring water here, but you could easily just use tap water for this. The great thing about this sanitizer is that it's no rinse, so you just need surface contact of about 1 minute on your gear to ensure that it's sanitized. Then you can just lay it out on a paper towel to dry. Everything that can come in contact or will come in contact with your wine should be sanitized. I like to take the extra step of sanitizing my concentrate bag also. We're going to start by adding our bentonite. Bentonite is a clarifier or fining agent for wine, and it's been used for centuries and centuries in winemaking to help clarify wines and give you a nice crystal clear product once you get to the glass. But we're going to start by putting 1 cup of warm water in the bottom of our fermentation vessel. Water goes in, and our bentonite goes in, the full 5-gram packet. Then we'll just give it a nice swirl to get it to dissolve. We don't want our bentonite to clump in the bottom of our fermentation vessel. Bentonite carries a charge, and that's going to help it grab on to larger molecules in there, dead yeast, bits of grape debris, things like that, and help it all settle to the bottom. Then when you transfer your wine, all that stuff is left behind. All right, now it's time to add our Chardonnay concentrate to our fermentation vessel. Pop the lid off of that and pour it in using the funnel. We're going to be diluting this the rest of the way with spring water, so we're going to go ahead and add some spring water to the bag to rinse out any remaining juice and get that in there, and then we'll top it off up to the 1 gallon mark, just above the raised text here on the jug, with a little bit more spring water. All right, 3 more packets to go for primary fermentation. We've got our oaking powders and our yeast. And before we add our yeast, we're going to give this a shake with a sanitized stopper in order to make sure everything is mixed together. Now we're at one of the most crucial junctures in our winemaking adventure, pitching our yeast. This is the little microbe that will get in here and convert the sugars in our must into alcohols, thus turning our grape juice into wine. So we'll just snip the corner of our yeast packet off and add that right in. Then again with our sanitized stopper, a nice shake. Next, we're going to add our airlock, and this is a 3-piece bubbler airlock. It acts as a water valve to keep microbes and fruit flies and molds and other things from your environment from getting into your fermenting wine. But that liquid valve allows fermentation gases, primarily CO2, to escape. So before we put our airlock on, we'll use a clean paper towel to just dry the neck of our jug, and we'll also ensure that our stopper is nice and dry. Stopper goes into the neck of the carboy, and then our 3-piece airlock will go into the neck of the carboy. And we'll add some spring water to that, just right to the fill line. And we're going to put this in a nice cool, dark place for the next 14 days and allow it to ferment through to completion. Okay, it's been 2 weeks and it's time for us to rack off our Chardonnay to get it off of the lees that's developed at the bottom. And it's started to clear a little bit, so that's a great sign that we're going to have some clear wine when we get to bottling. So to rack this off, we're gonna cheat a little bit because we're gonna get it back into this vessel. So to do that, we're gonna use this bucket that I ran through the sanitized cycle on my dishwasher, and we're going to transfer it via siphon to this bucket, then clean out the carboy, and then transfer it back into the carboy. You can use any vessel that can be sanitized that can hold about a gallon of liquid. So that might be a plastic iced tea pitcher, it might be a stainless steel kettle, anything like that that's food safe that you can get sanitized. To transfer it off, we're gonna use our racking tubing and our racking cane. I put the cap on the end of our cane there, and then our tubing has our hose clamp right there. We're gonna make sure that the hose clamp is all the way at the end of our tubing, and you want it adjusted on there so that you can easily clamp and unclamp the hose for flow. So how this works is we're going to fill this with this sterile water that we've boiled and allowed to cool. And once we get the entire tube full of water, we'll connect it to our racking cane. The racking cane will go down inside of our wine. We will open up the flow, and as the water exits, we'll clamp it down, move it over into our bucket, and then open it up so that way we have just wine flowing into our secondary vessel. So we just put our tube into the water here. You'll want to make sure you close off that hose clamp so the water actually stays inside. Okay, once that's totally full of water, we will put our racking cane on the end of the tubing there, and then remove our airlock from the wine. And the racking cane goes in, and we open up the flow. And once the wine starts flowing, we transfer it off to our bucket. Then as you get close to the bottom here, you'll want to tip the jug slightly so that way you can try and get all the liquid, leaving all the sediment behind. All right, now we need to clean this out and then we'll rack back into it. We're ready to rack back into it, and then we can get to stabilizing and fining. So let's repeat the process we just did. And now our wine needs to be degassed, and that's gonna help get some of that suspended CO2 out of there. It's gonna do a couple of things. For one, it's gonna prevent us from having a foam over when we add our stabilizers. Your stabilizers can act as nucleation sites for bubbles, meaning that bubbles will grow bigger and bigger on the little particles of stabilizers until they burst forth through the surface. And when that happens millions of times over, that creates a geyser out of your wine jug. So we're going to stir it gently for 5 minutes using our racking cane. At the end of 5 minutes, it's time to add our sulfite and sorbate. This will make our wine microbially stable, so that way nothing will re-ferment inside of our wine. And that packet just goes right in. And then we're gonna stir for another 3 minutes. At the end of that 3 minutes, it's time to add our chitosan. This is a fining agent. It'll grab onto any remaining particles that are inside the wine and drop them to the bottom, kind of sticking them to the bottom of the jug. Then when we bottle our wine, all that stuff will be left behind. That chitosan packet goes right in. And we'll stir that for another 2 minutes. Okay, finally, we want to minimize the headspace some in here by adding some sterile water to bring it up past that 1 gallon mark. So I have here some water that was boiled and cooled, so we know it's sterile. We're just gonna pour it gently down the neck of the carboy until it's above the 1 gallon mark. Alrighty, then all we have to do is put this back under airlock and wait a couple weeks, and then we can bottle. All right, we did it. We made it here. It's day 30. Our Chardonnay is crystal clear, and it's time to get it into bottles. To do that, we're going to use the same racking process that we used previously to transfer it off of the sediment. And perhaps most importantly, we've mixed up the remainder of our sanitizer into this gallon of water, so that way we can make sure that our bottles, our hose, and our cane are all sanitized before they touch the Chardonnay. So I'm gonna get our racking tube filled with this sterile water, and then we're gonna attach it to the racking cane, place that in the carboy, and transfer off our wine into these bottles. And one thing I like to do is use a chip clip like this on the racking cane. That prevents it from falling all the way to the bottom and getting into the lees that's gathered at the bottom. All right, let's get this bottled. Airlock comes off, and we're gonna open up this valve, and as soon as we see wine hit the end of the racking tubing, we will plug it up and transfer to bottles. We just want to push that tube all the way to the bottom of the bottle, so that way we're filling from the bottom. And now we just need to place in our corks. You just want to put your cork firmly in the top, like that. And there you have it, 5 delicious bottles of Chardonnay. We know that you can make good wine at home, and we know that the Craft to Brew wine kits are an easy and approachable way to do that. And don't forget to let us know in the comments how your wine kit turned out and what you thought of the Craft to Brew wine kit experience. Until next time, happy winemaking.